Hello and welcome to the Gonzalez Mitchell Show. I'm Clay Mitchell. Patrick is on assignment. Notwithstanding, today we have a special guest. Her name is Nina Taylor. She's the CEO of the Center for Election Science. Nina, hello. Welcome to Gonzalez Mitchell Show.
Hello, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here, and I'm so bummed that I didn't get to meet Patrick.
Oh, yeah. A lot of people are real sad about that. Nina, tell us about your background, what you've done in the past, and what brought you to the Center of Election Science, and exactly what does the center do?
Yeah. So I'm born and raised in Washington, D.C. and in Prince George's County, Maryland. I have a background in nonprofits, really medical specialty societies. So I've worked in oncology as well as psychiatry. I also have a background as a startup founder and an entrepreneur. And I just had an interest in democracy and politics. It's kind of something you naturally get living in this area. They literally pump it in the air and in the water. And so it was, I think, only a matter of time that I would kind of come around and find my footing in the democracy reform space. And so part of what I do at the Center for Election Science is really advocate and educate folks on alternative voting methods. And our voting method of choice is approval voting. We are a national nonpartisan nonprofit. We have the privilege of working all across the aisle and even with folks who have no aisle. And it's just a real joy to see folks interact with what the future of civic innovation and democracy could look like. Approval voting is really simple. It works on the ballot machines we currently have. And it's just a simple change, allowing an individual voter to vote for any number of candidates that they approve of on their ballot. And so what that does is it opens the door for third-party candidates that might have really great ideas, but it's not a ton of money to get in front of voters and for voters to show their support. It eliminates vote splitting, which has impacted our elections all across this nation at every single level. And I think it allows for transparency and fairness. And the part that I think really I'm attached to is that it really gives the voters the power back. And so, we can't play the lines and the games. Every candidate has to come to every community and talk to you about those issues that matter the most to you and have policies on that. They have to vie for your vote because it's really about consensus, not about partisan or policy gaming or antics. It really is about that candidate connecting with you.
Now, if I could drill down on this a bit more, one of the things that always bothered me is a jurisdiction like Baltimore City. They have a mayor's race. And recently, well, I say recently, the past 30 years or so, 35 years, the person who has become the mayor of Baltimore City wins the Democratic primary. The Republican primary just isn't a factor, not in 50, 60 years. The the person that wins usually has a plurality of votes, say 32, 33, 34%, which has always sort of bothered me that the turnout in Baltimore City at best gets to be 20% or so, maybe 25%. And of that, 32% are picking who the next mayor is.
Yeah.
And I always thought in a jurisdiction like that there needs to be a bit more fairness in how we select, say, the chief executive of a city of that size.
Yeah.
What does approval voting do? How would that work in, say, a jurisdiction like Baltimore City?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. One thing to highlight is that there are jurisdictions where people are getting into elected office with 18, 20, 23% of the vote, right? So that's not, as you mentioned, a majority. That's not a candidate that would enter office with a mandate to lead everyone in that jurisdiction. And so the other part of that is that we're seeing more people run for elected office. And so, these ballots can have 12, in some cases, we've seen 17 individuals running on a ballot. And being able to just choose a single person will end up splitting the vote from folks that might share similar demographics or maybe similar in policy, and then you end up with someone that really doesn't have that full support in the mandate from the community. Approval voting changes all of that. If you have a slate of candidates, let's say you have a slate of 7 candidates, you might really like 2 of those candidates. You think that they both would do a really, really great job. And you don't have to worry about picking the lesser 2 evils or picking along partisan lines, right? I know this is who the Democrats support. I'm going to throw all my support behind them. You can really choose the candidate that you feel would do the best for you. And it's all about consensus. The other beauty of it is that you would get results really quickly. It's a simple tallying, and you'll end up with folks that have 60, 70% support, rather than 18, 20, or 30% in office. And so it changes, I think, the narrative in which a person enters office, and what that support from the community truly looks like.
So let me get this straight. If in my mind, say it's Baltimore City, that's just the largest example I can think of in this state. You have say 6 people running in the field. Would it be both Democrats and Republicans all running, say, against one another, or would there be a Democratic approval voting and a Republican approval voting primary?
Yeah. So, so what you're kind of talking about is 2 different methods. And so there's open primaries where you could have both Democrats, independents, Republicans all running on one ballot. It still works with approval voting. You can select all the candidates that you approve of, none of the ones that you don't. It also can help in closed primaries. There's a ton of Democrats that run. Some of them might be splitting support between them. We saw that actually happening in St. Louis, Missouri. That's why St. Louis decided to usher in approval voting to mitigate the impacts that, 3 African-American candidates were splitting the vote, and then a single Caucasian candidate was able to just benefit from the split of that vote. And so it can happen in any of those scenarios, whether it's a closed primary or an open primary. And it really just depends on what the community would want. Like, we don't prescribe, approval voting. We've got
Right.
legislation that has been introduced to allow jurisdictions, should they want to enact approval voting. But there is a problem to fix, right? You mentioned it, that a lot of people are getting into office with a very low percentage, and there's something that could help with that. The other part of that is that these races are crowded, which is a great thing. More options is a good thing, but you should be able to say, like, I like all of these options. I think they would do a great job for me, rather than throwing the support behind somebody that you might feel lukewarm about.
What's the difference, say, because I know a bit about ranked choice voting. What's the difference between approval voting and ranked choice voting in, say, an application in a city like St. Louis or Baltimore City?
Yeah. So ranked choice voting is one of the voting reforms. There's a number of voting methods that a city or a jurisdiction can enact. Ranked choice voting, in your ballot, you would rank candidates 1, 2, and 3, or however many. Some areas you're able to rank 5. Some areas you're able to rank 7 candidates. And then it goes through a process of calculating and redistributing those votes to get to 51%. We don't recommend RCV. It is just a fight to get to 51. There is a complexity to the vote count that will extend the wait time. There's a lack of transparency. It's also hard to hand count, right, and tally. And so it doesn't necessarily fix vote splitting. That's our goal. We want to just mitigate the impacts that vote splitting has had on our elections. The other part of that is that RCV is really well funded. They're probably the better funded method than all of our methods. And so they're able to compete and kind of create this monopoly in our space that really shouldn't exist. It really should be up to the communities to identify if this works or not. We also have data that it is complex, and this isn't just assumption. it doesn't work for every community. Communities of color have had some issues with it, particularly in Oakland, California, and we've seen some impacts in New York. And so, but at the same time, there are areas in Massachusetts that have enjoyed it, right? And so it shouldn't be a one size fits all. And from our data, looking at the impacts of vote splitting on the elections in Maryland, redistricting in Maryland, and the slate of candidates, we feel that approval voting is a great option to move forward with Maryland.
Now, you've used the term vote splitting a few times. What exactly is that?
Yeah. So vote splitting happens when you have an election where you might have a number of similar candidates, whether they are from a similar demographic or their policies are similar, and they end up taking away votes from each other because the voters are kind of split between the deciding of those two, and they only have one vote to give. In these cases, you might see a third party candidate or a candidate that doesn't have support from the community winning with just that small margin of support. It also, approval voting helps with spoilers. So a lot of third party candidates are considered spoilers, and they shouldn't be, right? Like these are candidates that have folks that are excited about their ideas and excited about them leading, and they should have a shot. They shouldn't really be considered spoilers. And in Maryland in particular, we have this increased number of independent voters. And so they should be able to cast their vote of support for the candidates that they feel that they align with, while also maybe supporting a Democrat or a Republican.
In Maryland, there's 2.3 million Democrats, there's a million Republicans, and 945,000 unaffiliated voters the last time I saw.
Yeah.
So there's more unaffiliated voters now than there ever have been. When you talk about the primary voting using this method, would it be open primaries where any of the parties could vote in any of the primaries, or how exactly do you envision that, say, in a jurisdiction like Baltimore City?
I think that's a wonderful question. We're friendly.
Thank you.
We're really friendly with the guys over open primaries. And I know that they have a legal challenge that they're advancing in Maryland to open up. The great part about approval voting is it does work in an open primary setting. And so, that ballot would look like you would have all the candidates, whether you're a Democrat, you're able to vote for a Republican, you're able to vote for someone that might be Green Party. It just opens it up. And then it's the folks that you approve of, right? And so do you think that these three folks would do a great job? That's who you vote for. The other part of approval voting in open primaries is that it could be augmented at the next step. And so you might vote that way in a primary and get to a top 2 or a top 4, and then have a regular kind of plurality election with the top of the larger pie of candidates. And so, open primaries works really well with approval voting, but then even without open primaries, approval voting could work inside a primary system.
Now, our former Lieutenant Governor Boyd Rutherford is in a law firm that's involved in a lawsuit to try and open primaries to independent voters.
Yeah.
And I won't get into the legal theory of all of that, but the one thing I learned from reading the briefs from both sides is that as an old country lawyer here, you have a fundamental right to vote in the general election. There's no question about it. You have the right to vote. In the primary elections, it's a different ball of wax where it's the nominating process. And different rules can apply.
Right.
Your approval voting would really just work in primary elections, would it not? Do you see any constitutional problems with applying approval voting in a general election?
I think with any of the major changes to systems, there's going to be some sort of legal challenge or a constitutional change. I think that our sweet spot really has been primaries and municipal elections. I do think that we also need to do the work to prove to folks, to voters, that this is something that truly works before you get to the large scale. I love that the open primaries folks are going through the legal challenge. Not only should those independent voters have a voice, But what we're seeing in the data is that a lot of young voters don't see themselves in either of the major parties. And so they need a place to land too until they figure out how they feel about the world. And they should be able to cast a ballot just as a D or an R would. And so, yeah, I'm yes, we are always primed for a legal challenge. But right now, the way that the language is worked, really worded, we can enact. Like your jurisdiction can choose to enact approval voting. And that to me is really powerful to be able to get it into people's hands to see how it all changes the game. Do they feel more powerful in casting a ballot for these candidates? Are candidates running in a different way? Are they building consensus? Are they taking that hyperpartisanship, that polarization out of our elections? I think that's compelling argument for any legal challenge we might be facing in the future.
These kids today, they ruin everything. I'm sorry.
I love the kids today. I think they're world.
What is your strategy going forward? Are you lobbying in Maryland and in Annapolis? What's your strategy with this in the state of Maryland?
Yeah, so we have an amazing bill sponsor. Senator Mike McKay has sponsored our bill for the last 2 years, and so we've been able to lobby and educate and really advocate for this change. We've been able to connect with our election administrators. They are an important piece to this, and making sure they understand it, as answering their questions. We also provide educational resources and support from everything from voting rights acts to safety and security for our election administrators. And we just coalition build, right? We introduce this to many times for the first time to individuals. Right. This is the problem, right? So giving it the name that it is. And this is the solution that you can enact today. Literally, it works on the voting machines right now. And it's something that if you're in a multi-member district or if you're voting for school board in multiple seats, you've already done it. And so imagine doing that for your governor or your mayor. I would anticipate the future of it is having more voices that aren't funded by large amounts of money, being able to say, you know what, I love this country, I love my community, I want to run, and they should be able to do that and have that support and not run off of name recognition or gaming or anything like that. It's I think it brings some fairness and civility back to our elections, and just kind of takes out all those nasty things that we've seen kind of over and over in history. Really great candidates not quite getting to office because of vote splitting or because of this kind of hyper-partisan antic.
You're going to take away my nice, nasty, juicy elections? What are you talking about? I love those things.
I think what would be the best and most juicy would be having a candidate in office that got 80% of the vote, that they did the work to go to every community and listen to those issues and come up with policies and then be accountable for those policies. I think that is absolutely savory.
Do you not think this would be work better initially, at least until people are used to it and comfortable with it at a municipality level?
Well, I do think a municipality level is our sweet spot, but if you shoot for the stars, you'll land on the moon. And so, it's one of those things where there is a fundamental issue with our elections. And if we drop this simple change, it really is revolutionary in the fact that it is something that could be done today. And it is a system-wide change that I think could help us in the future. That's something that's worth considering on all levels.
Well, Elon Musk plans on populating the moon. I think you have a future there if you get in there first for the moon elections. That's not too far off.
If even if he pops up the America Party, that's if there's a great candidate, people might want to support them. That's where approval voting can come in.
There you go. This is an interesting subject. Until I heard about this, I always knew about ranked choice voting and all that, but this is something different, and I'm interested in learning more about it. As you go on with your lobbying and promoting this in Annapolis, keep in touch with Patrick and I. We'd like to get any updates that you may have on this.
Absolutely. And if your viewers are interested in learning more about us and supporting our work or just jumping in the fight as a volunteer, we'd love to have you check us out at electionscience.org.
Electionscience.org.
Yes.
Well, Nina, I appreciate your time, but I look at the clock on the wall. Sadly, our time is coming to an end. So, you know the drill. It's time to say goodbye, Patrick.
Goodbye, Patrick.
Goodbye, Patrick, wherever you are. Nina, thank you so much. Keep in touch with us. We'd love to have you back on.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Clay. It's wonderful to be here, and I appreciate the opportunity to talk about our work.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.